All right. First of all, like always, appreciate you guys coming to cover Penn State football. We got a packed house. We haven't had this in a long time in person together. So I'm appreciative of that. Appreciative of 60,000, whatever we had at the game. Beautiful day. I'm not sure who got that done for us, but we appreciate that as well. And for the most part, we stayed healthy, got a ton of reps. Managed a challenging situation with our offensive line based on numbers. I know probably today wasn't exactly what the fans and the media wanted, but it was the best thing to do for our program, and then still maximize the opportunity that we had. We answered some questions this spring, but obviously we still got some questions going into fall camp. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done between now and fall camp, and then before you know it, I'll be talking to you guys on a Wednesday, and we'll be going to Purdue. Well, maybe I won't be talking to you on a Wednesday, but I'll be talking to you before the game. We'll be getting on a plane to go to Purdue to open up national television Thursday night, which will be awesome, opening up with a Big Ten opponent on the road. So I'm pleased with our progress. Obviously, Manny Diaz being able to get here, be able to watch bowl practice and then get 15 practices. Spring ball was very, very important. Year 2 under Mike Yursich was very, very important. Getting a veteran quarterback like Sean Clifford with the same offense coordinator for 2 years and be able to mentor really 3 talented underclass quarterbacks, all these things gain value. The last thing I would say is, we probably have more guys in this recruiting class, and I'm not really talking about rankings because as we know, those things are nice, but at the end of the day, it's about what really shows up on your campus from a production standpoint. And we probably have more new guys showing up on campus that have a chance to impact the roster as freshmen than maybe we've ever had. Maybe one other class, that did that. So I'm excited about that. Where I think this class may be different is obviously we've all seen the increase in mid-semester grads. We have, we're getting more guys that are graduating early and coming in, learning the system, and then going into summer with a chance to truly compete. So overall, I'm excited about it. Again, I appreciate you guys being here, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Raise your hand, we'll get a mic to you.
James, kind of building on your last statement there, can you speak to why it's important to get kids in who are ready to play immediately? I assume it has to do with creating just overall more competition across the board. Is that what you're getting at? Thanks.
Yeah, a couple things. I think the first thing I would say is we don't pressure guys. I think some schools really are adamant about them having to graduate early and get here. We don't, but the numbers are just naturally rising. People see it as an opportunity to get ahead academically. As you guys saw, Micah Parsons was here. Micah graduated in 3 years. You're talking about getting ahead academically in a semester. There's also value in football. You have to show up and you have to adjust academically, athletically, and socially all at once, all in the fall semester. Where maybe other sports like basketball, you're able to come in and adjust academically and socially and then adjust later in the semester or the second semester when it comes to basketball. So there's value from that perspective. And then obviously depth. You look around college football, everybody's struggling with depth in the spring ball based on some of the new rule changes. So it helps from that standpoint as well. So there's a lot of reasons why I think it makes sense, but I do think it has to be the right kid in the right situation, because literally you go from being a high school student on a Wednesday to like a college student on a Monday. It happens fast. So you got to be ready for it.
Coach, looking back over your 15 spring practices, who are some of the guys that stand out to you now as you're able to look at the entirety of it, not just week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4?
Yeah, that question I always struggle with because, when I do it and I missed a guy, then somebody's upset or somebody's parents are upset. And then obviously what's going on nationally right after spring ball, some feelings can be hurt. So, I'm going to answer your question. I don't love the question, but I'm going to answer it. Guys that probably stood out, and I'm just going to kind of go through my mind with this, but Jair Brown, Tig, obviously led the nation in interceptions last year, but again, I thought he built on it this spring and this winter workouts. I really feel like we got 3 other safeties that really flashed at times. So I think we have, and I've said this before to the people that come every single week, at a lot of positions, I'm not ready to say we're as talented with the starters that we've ever been, but we have positions where our depth is as good as it's been, where the drop-off isn't as significant to the number 2s and number 3s. At corner, Kalen King, I think really stood out, this spring. At linebacker, I would say the move of John Sutherland to the field backer, I think has been very obvious to everybody. That was the right thing for us to do, and that was the right thing for John to do. I think he's got a chance to have a big year. A defensive line, just having Adisa back. You guys know we felt like he had a chance to be a really special player that missed last year. So having him back, it's great to see that athleticism, coming off of the edge. And I would say the same thing at D tackle that I said at safety. I think we have more depth at D tackle without a significant drop-off than we've had in the past. On the offensive side of the ball, and I know it's a long answer, I would say at right tackle, at center and left tackle with Caden, Sal, and Olu, I think those 3 guys played really well. They took a ton of reps this spring. We have going to have a really good competition at guard. We'll still have competition at those positions, but we'll have really good competition at guard to see how that plays out. Getting Salim Wormley back from an injury that we lost last year is really valuable. We got as good of a tight end room, I think, as anywhere in the country. Our depth there is really good. And then wide out, with Parker and Keandre back, I thought Mitchell Tinsley came in and did some really good things that you'd expect out of a veteran wide out. And then again at wide out, I think we got a chance to have a legitimate 2 deep that we probably haven't had. At quarterback, Sean's had his best spring. Vayu was able to build on the success that he had in the Rutgers game. And then I think someone asked me last week, I know it's a long question. If I just keep talking, maybe there's no more questions, I'm done. But somebody asked me about reps to the quarterback, how we divvied that up. So kind of getting to the quarterbacks. So that Sean and Vayu had both had really good springs, and the 2 young guys really flashed some potential. But when it came to reps, I know somebody was asking about this. Clifford was able to get 201 reps this spring, and that's attempts. I'm not talking about just overall reps. I'm talking about attempts. Vayu had 183. Alar had 134 and Prabula had 132. Don't overread into the 2 rep difference, which I know somebody will make a big deal out of that. But I thought that was good. I thought it was awesome to see Gabe Nuosu today punt the hell out of the ball. He hadn't done that all spring, to be honest with you. Some guys, when they get in the stadium, Beaver Stadium, in front of the fans, the light goes on and they play well. I thought he did that today. I thought Barney Amore was great all spring. That's important, obviously, losing Jordan Stout, who will probably be the highest drafted specialist in the country this year. So long answer. But again, I'm trying not to hurt anybody's feelings, but also answer your question in as much detail as possible.
Hi, James.
Hi, Rich. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Did you get a haircut?
It's hard to tell.
Oh, I wish I had that.
In your opening remarks, you said that you have a lot of questions and a lot of work to do before now and the Purdue game.
What are the questions?
What's number 1 on the list?
Gotcha. I don't know if I got it number 1. The things that jump out of my mind is who's going to be the punter. After losing maybe the best specialist in the country, that's a big question. Is it Barney? Is it Gabe? Is it Mitch? Or is it a really talented guy coming in, Baketta? It's interesting, talking to Blake Gillikin, who I think we all had a ton of respect for. Blake says, and he's worked out with him, Blake says he's the best freshman he's ever seen. So we'll see how that plays out. But that was a big question coming into the season, obviously after losing somebody. Offensive line, who's going to replace the guys that left, and can we take a step where you guys ask me about the offensive line, I say something, and then we back it up. on the offensive line, which has been a question. I think the other question is linebacker. We lost some horsepower at the linebacker position. I think we got a pretty good idea who the two outside linebackers, and I think we had a great competition at Mike linebacker between Elsdon and Kobe. And I would say as a staff, and Manny would probably tell you this, they probably did better than we anticipated. So we're a little bit further ahead there than we thought, if that makes sense. They're probably the big things. And then obviously hiring a new defensive coordinator. How is he going to fit and mesh after me having so much stability at that position for a long time? But that's been good so far. I hope that answers your question.
You just mentioned Manny Diaz. I want to go back to your safety room for a second. How does the versatility of his defense and then the versatility of the players you have at that safety position, how does that mesh for you from what you've seen this spring?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that you hear all the time. It's almost like a coaching cliche, right? We're going to play to the strengths of our players, but then you watch a lot of times and coordinators don't do that. They've always been an 11 personnel team or 11 personnel coordinator, but then you have a really strong tight end room. Are you willing to go 12 personnel, or are you going to be hard-headed? So I see that, with both of our coordinators, and I see that with Manny. That was part of moving Sutherland, to the field backer position, which is something we were talking about before Manny got here. But I think Manny was able to kind of lay a foundation. I don't know if you're necessarily going to see that this spring, but you lay a foundation. You watch who makes plays, not only in team settings. You watch who makes plays in one-on-one reps of practice. We watch everything. We tape everything. We chart everything. We got data on everything. And then be able to go back and, say, one of the things that I love to do preseason every year before the fall and every year before the spring is let's rank our 22 best players. And then based on that ranking, that should dictate how we play on offense and defense. Let's rank our units, O-line through quarterback and everywhere in between, and what's our strongest units to our weakest units. And then as coaches, at the end of the year, let's re-rank it and see if it plays out the same way. You had a chance as a position coach to fix it. Your position was the last ranked group on offense or defense. Let's fix it. So I think that feedback is really important. But to your question about Manny and flexibility and strength of our personnel, I think that's hard because that was laying a foundation more than anything, and him figuring out who our team is and what our strengths are, and then you kind of get into the specifics of game planning.
James, you said that you thought that this was Sean's best spring. I guess how and why do you feel that way, and what did you think about the two true freshmen today?
Well, number one, the data.
Yeah, what else? Yeah.
Oh, you want it? No.
No.
So the data, and what we try to do every day is we do daily data, and then I get a second sheet with cumulative data. So it's what your eyes tell you, what your experience tells you, and then you have the data to back it up to make sure your eyes and experience are driving you and leaning you in the right direction. But you talk about his interception ratio. You talk about his completion percentage. You talk about his explosive play percentage. I mean, we track it all. We track drop percentage, adjusted drop percentage, all these different things. MAs, we track missed assignments, what we call MAs. So we track it all. And then part of it's talking to defense. Manny, what do you think about the offense? Terry, Poindexter. So it's feedback, and I think it's also how his teammates are responding. It's also how he was with the young quarterbacks. I thought he was tremendous. And then what's great is you hear that from the young quarterbacks, but then I see the Prebulas and I see the Alars, mom and dad, and they talk about their sons talking about how great Sean was with them all spring. So all of that.
We're going to let Dave ask a question.
Yeah, I get it.
She's nice.
I saw you.
She's nice. No, you didn't.
I did. I saw you.
All
Kept
right,
going
all
like
right.
this.
Are you married? And I don't.
Yeah, 16 years, because it's for me, it's Shola plus one,
All right.
because it happened on the honeymoon. Is that too much information? Just being honest with you. We've been 8 years, 9 years.
I guess I don't have a question anymore.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, my column just changed. Are you married to the concept of this being a game, a scrimmage, a competition, or would you consider it, since you don't want to get guys hurt anyway, being a skills competition, maybe with fans interactive? Would that ever cross your mind, or do you like it being
The spring game?
Yes, the blue-white events.
Well, it's the blue-white event this year. Let's be honest. For 9 years, it's been a spring game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would prefer it to be the spring game.
Why?
Because, number one, like I mentioned, when you step into the stadium and you got 60,000 fans, I want to know which young players can handle that. Some rise to the moment and play better than they did in the 14 other practices. Some are nervous and they're dropping balls they haven't dropped all spring or missed assignments or whatever it is. I think there's also a part of it, let's be honest. I want the fan base excited going into the next year, that there's a buzz and they're talking about it. I want you guys writing nice columns, please. All these types of things. I think there's value in it. But I get it. Like anything, there's a cost-benefit ratio to everything. For us, we've done a pretty good job. You saw today, some of the periods were thuds, some of them were live. I could see us even in the future in a spring game setting doing both. Because I think the live work, this is still a game where you better block, you better tackle, and you better be able to break tackles. So it is needed, I think, in the overall evaluation of our program to know where we're headed. And maybe I'm old school, I'm still a believer that this game is built on toughness, and I want to know who's tough when it matters most.
Okay.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you. But were you talking about like the skills contest where we used to have you guys out there catching punts in front of 60,000 fans?
I'm talking about fans being like who knows? I'm brainstorming this stuff with the fans. With
If you
readers.
got good ideas, send them to Chris. We're always open for new ideas. But I want to know, were you specifically talking about you guys catching punts?
No.
He didn't volunteer, James.
No.
He did not volunteer.
What's that? Why, because you didn't take advantage of your first one? Then why do you want another one? What about open field tackling? Live open field tackling. And I want to know, because I'd be curious to know who you want to be matched up with. You get one opportunity to run and one opportunity to be tackled. Media on media, and I want to know who that is.
Way to go.
Very curious.